Do you want to make your story come alive? Perhaps you've written a story and it feels it's an interesting plot. It's a good story idea. Something's not quite working. So many times I see writers with beautiful story ideas and this really key ingredient missing. They're not yet embodying the story. And that can translate actually into not enough bodies in the story. I'm not talking about the dead ones in a mystery. What I'm talking about is the presence of a physiological experience for the reader. So you've probably heard about engaging the senses. Very good advice. I'm going to take it a little bit further and give you 4 ways to include bodies and embodiment into your writing. So the first one, let's look at including and engaging the senses. So we've got 5 of them. Some could argue 6, but in the physiological reality of our bodies, we have sight, we have taste, we have touch, we have smell, we have sound. So when we're writing, and some people have 4 senses, sensory experiences, and some people have maybe 3. So, but those are the ones that are available, generally speaking. So if we say it was cold, that's one kind of statement. Statement to let the reader know the temperature. They know it intellectually, but they're not feeling and experiencing it. And when they feel and experience that cold, takes the story to a new level. So if it is cold in your story, can you describe through the senses the coldness? So perhaps the wind on the face of your character has a particular bracing touch. And that description of the feeling of the cold is going to evoke more response from your reader. They're going to understand and feel the character's predicament in the cold more than if you just say it was cold. So that's the sense, and maybe also there's the blinding white of the snow. Maybe there's a sound. So evoking the senses is a really good place to start when we think about embodiment. The other thing, number 2, I'm going to give you 4. So number 2 is body language and gesture. So oftentimes, especially when it comes to dialogue, the bodies seem to disappear and the voices are present. Body language is so important to our cues as humans. And as writers, we can bring in bodily language in our dialogue or even in scenes where there is no dialogue. The gestures and the body language, as I'm gesturing my hands here, tell us a lot about character. And they also let us know that they are humans, that they are real and alive people. Now, I caution you against using very generic body language. I see a lot of shrugging in stories, a lot of shrugging, a lot of nodding. So when you think about body language, go into feel the body of your character and ask yourself, what gestures would they use in their speaking? In, like, they might be really stiff, really tight. That's the kind of body language. They might be very demonstrative with their hands. They might be subtle with their eye gaze and movement. So choosing a gesture or a few gestures that your character embodies and translating that onto the page. Number 3, really simple but often forgotten, physical description. So and this does not have to be, I often use that picture, that Matisse, as an example of creating just broad strokes. We don't have to give head to toe physical descriptions in our writing, but it is very helpful to anchor the story in physical detail, including the characters' bodies. So if you are writing from first person or third person, quite often the narrator, the one whose consciousness you're inhabiting, isn't going to describe themselves. But there are ways of doing this, and I encourage you to practice. And when they encounter someone, they are going to notice physical attributes about that character. What 2 things do they notice about the physical body of someone else coming into their experience? This gives the reader a sense of, first of all, the mind and awareness of the character whose point of view you're writing from. It also brings that character a little more alive. And that's what we want. The 4th thing I wanted to say was the felt sense of an experience. So I mentioned the cold earlier. The cold, the wind blowing on the character's face. So there's the experience, the feeling of cold, but that's going to go deeper into the body as the cold, intensifies. There may be deep shivering, that need to seek warmth, the numbness of fingers, and so on. So maybe the cold is one example, but it could be also, another experience, an exchange with another character. What is the protagonist's felt experience of encountering another character? What goes on for them physiologically? Do they want to run? Do they feel flush with gladness? What is the emotional and physiological felt sense of that experience? So these are 4 ways for you to bring your story more alive, make it more vital, make it more embodied, so that your reader will resonate more deeply with your story.